What is up, guys? Jason Rigby, ABQ Business Podcast. I'm going to talk today about the most important quality in a leader. Before I get into that, I want us to get into ego just a little bit because it's going to set it up for the most important quality in a leader. I always love to give credit where credit is due. Too many people are taking credit for things that other people have wrote or written. I know nothing new is under the sun, but this is from Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink. I talk about him all the time. You should get all his books, anything that he writes. It will help you tremendously in being a leader. He says in the book, Extreme Ownership, ego clouds and disrupts everything. The planning process, the ability to take good advice, and the ability to accept constructive criticism. It can even stifle someone's sense of self-preservation. When you can't control your ego, it can become the greatest instrument of your own destruction. How many times, if we study any type of history, you watch any type of documentary, what always fucks up people in the end as leaders? It's their ego. Look at what's happening now with Russia and Ukraine. Look at Putin. He's isolating himself, even from his own people. They're trying to create some type of coup, the generals and everything else. He's keeping himself. You can see it online. He sits at a table way far away. Ego, 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 ego. And now look what it's caused. Look at the Russian economy. Look how far it's collapsed. Look at the Russian people are suffering for no reason. The Ukrainians are having to deal with this horrific situation where they're experiencing war in 2022. This dictator full of ego. But guess what, guys? We all have that little dictator in us too. Ego gets us in trouble every single time. And it's hard hitting. You guys know this. You know when you've gotten in trouble, when you've lied, when you've done something you're not supposed to, when you've gone against your morals. What would cause you to go against your morals? The ego. Ego says, yeah, you deserve that. Yeah, you can have that. You can lie about that. Go ahead. Be a hedonist. Take what you want. There's no repercussions, which we know that there is, especially as a leader, because it doesn't affect you. It affects those that you love the most and those that you lead. Ego is a good thing, though, because it can drive us. It can motivate us. It can make us do extraordinary things. It causes us the desire inside of ourselves to win. It makes us want to be the best that we can be. But it's like taking a wild Mustang and trying to tame it, trying to ride it and harness it and get it to do what you need for it to do. That's the tough part. That's where self-awareness steps in. And that's ego. Now let's talk about the opposite of that, which I believe, and Jocko Willink talks about this, humility. This is the most important quality in a leader. The answer to your problem is humility. Without humility, you won't listen to anyone. Let's use Putin, for example. He's not listening to anyone. His ambassadors, anyone that comes to him with an objection of what he's trying to do, he immediately, how many people has he killed? You don't listen to anyone. You think you have all the answers and you're right. Guess what happens? If you don't listen to anyone, you can't learn. And you know all these know-it-all type people. I've gone into businesses all the time, and I'm like, I've told leaders that I do not want to help them just for the simple fact is because of this. They don't have humility. They're not willing to learn. All they do is just say, it's like, why did you invite me here? And then I'm giving you advice in an expertise that I have, and you're turning around and questioning me on every single one. It's like, well, if you know this, then why don't you do it? But then why did you bring me here? Because you have problems in your organization. But they don't see that. It blinds you. It blinds you to problems. And we know, or you should know, you should question this with your managers. How am I, as the owner of a business or the manager or the leader in whatever I'm doing, how am I causing hindrance day to day? So many times I see that. When I talk to managers and I gain their trust and I get with them, they're like, it goes so much better when the owner's not here. It goes so much better when this leader's not here, because they just micromanage and they're picking and they're distracting me and I'm trying to be on mission and this is what I'm trying to do. And then they're refocusing me here, here, here. You've got to let your leaders lead. And that takes humility. How are you going to be open-minded to new things, to new technologies that's happening so rapidly? If you don't have humility, you cannot improve performance. Another thing that Jocko talks about is without humility, you stop respecting your competition. We've seen this in sports. If you played sports, you've seen this where you've got big ego, super amounts of pride. Next thing you know, you get your ass kicked. You get complacent. Complacency. And if you have a huge ego in that complacency, you can't self-assess where you're at. You can't be honest with yourself and truthful with yourself. And that's the number one thing you can do. That's why humility is so great, because I can sit down and say, you know what, Jason, what you're doing right now is going down the wrong fucking road. And you need to change now. You need to stop fucking eating that ice cream late at night, the bowl of cereal late at night, whatever it is, because you know what's going to happen. 5-10 pounds later, and then you got to work your fucking ass off and do a ton of cardio and lift a shitload of weights just to be able to get this off when all you wanted was one little simple pleasure. And my ego would be like, oh, sure, you can have it. You can have it. And we do that all the time. We become complacent and we can't self-assess. And it causes us not only not to be honest with ourselves, but we can't analyze ourselves without a bias. The self-assessments that we need in our lives, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, we can't do because we don't see where we need to improve. We don't see the truthful mistakes that we've made, because humility requires you to own the mistakes that you made, to be 100% responsible and honest with that. Without that self-assessment, you're done. You can't solve problems. You can't improve. You've got to start admitting the problems that you have in your life. The way that you lead is admitting problems and working on solving those. I see that all the time. People are so blind to the problem that's staring them right in the face. It's like, not only is your industry facing this problem, but you're facing it head on, and you want to, it's like the whole thing with Airbnb. Hotel industry was like, that's not going to work. People giving their house. No one wants to give their house out. No one's going to do that. Look what's happened. Record profits once again. Last quarter, stocks way up. Everybody's like, no. Uber, no. People aren't going to drive. Taxis are the only way to go. Taxi industry was like, this is going to fail. It's going to last. Technology comes to disrupt. And if you're going in the old ways and not embracing the new ways, you're going to be a dinosaur and left behind so quickly. So quickly. So how can you embrace? Do you need to make a hybrid model? First, you need to understand, what's the problem that's causing my customer to do this? Why are they deciding to go to this technology? And how can we adapt our systems to handle that? That's recognizing that the problem exists, then creating systems around the problem to solve it. That's value. That's being a leader. One of the things when you're dealing with relationships, whether it's your personal relationships or your relationships at work, because I think they're all the same relationship. And Jocko says this, and I love it. He says, when someone disagrees, assume they know something you don't. Don't let your ego hit you. When somebody says, you know, I disagree with that, Jason. Instantly in my head, it's like, they know something I don't. I need to listen right now. Not attack, not let my ego. If someone disagrees with you, I mean, if they're a bad, shitty person, of course. But if they're a good person and they've worked for you and they disagree with you, that's a blessing. It is a blessing. Even someone of less experience. Because they may be that frontline troop that's seeing something that you don't see, because they're dealing with your customers every single day. You're going to learn something. And you know what? being able to see through their eyes and gain a new perspective that you missed it. That's humility. That's valuable. It's gold, guys. And then guess what you get to do? Because it's like, I get to learn, teach, learn. That's what I say all the time. Everyone, you can learn from someone and someone can teach you. I can teach you. You can learn from me, vice versa. Learn, teach, learn. Everyone should have that. That should be your culture in your work. Learn, teach, learn. We're listening. Now we're going to listen. We're going to create a safe space to allow them to be able to talk and be honest. And then we're going to ask questions. Because all they do is have a different perspective. That's all from something that they're seeing. That's their reality. Ask them truthful questions, not ego questions where you're pissed off. Not like, well, Jim, you said this, but I think it's this, and this. Why would you even think that you should say that? You're shutting them right off. And you know this in relationships. Would you ask your partner, your wife, your children, those that you love the most, would you treat them that way? You want to understand where they're coming from completely. Take the time to understand where they're coming from. And you're going to see a different perspective. And guess what? Not every different perspective than what you have is wrong. Just because you may say, hey, I think we should do it this way, and they say we should do it this way, what does it hurt to allow them to walk down the road so they can claim complete ownership? Worst case scenario, if it doesn't hurt you, it doesn't cost you money. One, you may get to the same, you got to go from A to B, straight line. If you can get to B in a different way and they can claim ownership of it and you're not having to do it, by all means, take a new way and go. If they fail, then you can sit them in the office and say, hey, you remember I had said this, you wanted to do it this way. How can we get it to where we're being successful? Should we, revamp your idea? Should we bring some more people in to learn a different perspective from what's going on? Should we do it the way I suggested it? What do you think we should do? And that's self-assessment. And he talks about this, constantly self-assess. You ask the questions, how could you have done it better? How could you have communicated it more clearly? How could you ask for clarification? What's the right way to ask someone for clarification? How could you have followed up sooner? What could you have done to build a better relationship? How could you have improved the situation? We don't have all the answers. Guess what? We have a learning mindset. We always constantly want to improve, right? All of us want to improve. You want to improve. I want to improve. So these are the questions that we ask. We constantly self-assessed. Jocko said he asked a highly successful leader, huge market expansion, experiencing super rapid growth. He said, what has been the key drivers for the company's success? He asked this guy this, super successful guy. That's what he said. The CEO said this, I recognized the shortfalls in my knowledge and experience. And he said, I don't need to be the one running everything. Instead, I realized I needed to bring in some people who are much smarter than me with real expertise in the areas where I am deficient. He said that has made all the difference for us. And Jocko comes up with some action plans. I'm going to give those to you real quick, guys. This is what I want you to do. Determine one area this week where you need to do a better job putting your ego in check. Just one area. Take some self-assessment. Sit down. Right after you get off this podcast, sit down for 5 minutes. Determine one area this week and write this down where you need to do a better job putting your ego in check. Ask for someone you trust guidance and opinion about this. And don't get upset with what they say. Say, how can I do a better job? What do I need a better job in? Putting my ego in check. Listen. Let them explain to you. If you want to be super brave, ask this question of someone that you're in an argument with. Someone that you have some friction with. Say, with this relationship, how could I do a better job of putting my ego in check with you? Take ownership of the issue. And then explain to yourself how you're going to do better going forward. This is great stuff, guys. Like I said, you can get the book. I'll leave it in the show notes. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Ego, humility. Learn the dichotomy of that. understand your ego, understand humility, and how you can lead, because it is truly the most important quality of a leader.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.